Hello, my fellow readers. This is iDarkSymphony777 with another fanfiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. First review of 2022. It's gonna be a big year. I can feel it. I can feel it. Ugh. So, the fanfiction we are reviewing today is Paper Mario: The Temple of the Sun. It's a Mario fanfiction written by that one little guy. I don't know what's up with the name, but it's fine. I've read weird names. It's fanfiction. You just go with it. So, this story actually kind of caught my eye years ago, but what happened was I simply forgot about it. I was actually reading through it, and then the whole thing that I broke up with my ex, and I just completely forgot about it for a while. And so I thought, now that I finally remembered it, now it's like the right time, because I only really remembered it because Starlet Duck actually just mentioned to me and her were talking, and she just mentions, like, I'm reading this story called Paper Mario: Temple of the Sun. And it's like, wait a minute, I never read that before. And I went back and I said, yeah, this was the story I read all that time ago. I should get around to actually doing it, but I had, like, other fan fictions at the time. No, it was the beginning of December, and I don't really do reviews December, because, you know, I'm having to do the top 10 thing, that takes enough time. Plus, it's the busiest time of the year with my job, so it's like I can't really afford to actually do reviews and stuff like that. But here we are with Paper Mario: Temple of the Sun. A fanfiction I wanted to review, but couldn't, and now I am. So, before I actually get into review, I will mention that I will be bringing up Paper Mario and Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, specifically because of certain happenstances that happened in the story from a storytelling perspective. Just thought I'd let you know. So let's actually get into the plot. So the plot is actually really creative. It's a story about Mario and Peach going on Peach wanted to go on vacation. Mario wisely thinks, like, maybe I should come with you this time, because remember what happened last time? You got kidnapped by an alien. You were possessed by a demon. Yeah, I'm gonna come with you. And so they go to this place called Chronoside, which is this very, very religious place. Religious in the fact that they kind of have a sort of religion based actually around night and day. So it's like they see them as like actual gods and sort of thing. Chronoside is like really, really hard to actually describe without going into like religious stuff, because there is a lot of religious parallels with the whole thing, because, you know, again, they worship all times a day, and this was actually a plot point with one of the characters in the story that again crosses over into like the religious themes. I know it's kind of weird being religious of times, but it works. But anyway, back to the story. So Mario, Peach, and Toadsworth, and Luigi are basically just wandering around. They get introduced to a guy named Rodolfo. And Rodolfo basically gives them a grand tour. He shows them around, shows them the sights and stuff like that. And then they come across a Goomba thief named Gooblaine, who steals Mario's hammer. Mario chases him. They go into the Temple of the Sun, which is this very holy place that is actually supposedly like forbidden from visitors. Like, no one's allowed to enter unless times of great catastrophe happen. So they go in. A time of great catastrophe happened when the main antagonist, King Shroud, shows up and kills the Guardians of Day, slaying them and ripping Chronoside into a la Aether from Metroid Prime 2, where you have a dark side and you have a light side. And neither side knows the other side exists. They just think, oh, it's always day here. Oh, it's always night here. And so Mario, under trying to figure things out, because he's like, well, he's in the Temple of the Sun, so he's like, Wait, what? What? Ah, ah, ah. Has to go and not only find the soul stone, these time stones, soul stones, whatever you want to call them, but also has to find the new guardian, because in the lore, if the guardians need replaced, there's going to be people who are worthy enough somewhere in Chronoside to basically be able to be worthy to basically inherit the positions of the guardians, and that sort of thing. And of course, the story plays out in typical Paper Mario storytelling fashion. See what I did there? I told you I was going to be bringing it up. So, before I get into the nitty-gritty of it, I might as well just at least explain how the storytelling in Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door work. So, basically, if you actually watch the 3 tier list videos I do, kind of building up to this specific video, you'll hear that I mentioned an umbrella-style plot. Basically, okay, so there is a main overarching plot throughout the entire story of Temple of the Sun. Basically, the main overarching plot is Mario has to find the Soul Stones, find the Guardians, and stop King Shroud, excuse me, with whatever plan he has. But each chapter has their own individual story. So it's like there's an overarching plot encompassing everything, but each chapter, and I say chapter not in like chapter because despite the fact this fanfiction has like 58 chapters, not every bits and pieces of those chapters are part of a chapter, i.e. they're all part of one individual story that is sequestered from everything else. Because, similar to Paper Mario, King Shroud entrusted 3 of his men, the Darklings, Yeah. Jaff, and some of his other men, to basically give the Soul Stones, and put the Soul Stones in specific locations, and hopes that Mario doesn't find them until King Shroud's plan is complete. So, basically, not every story involves the Darklings specifically, like, the first one, he hides them in a forest. The Darklings aren't really involved in that because that's more a specific single thing. There's also one where they go to a Wild West themed city that has its own individual plot with a Mauser gang and stuff like that. And stuff like that. Like I said, it's a very common tactic in like certain types of stories. So if you come across any sort of RPG, most RPGs have this kind of plot in some way, shape, or form somewhere. Not every RPG, but some of them. So, Mario and Goomblain, the only person who's not affecting, because, guess what? Every single person, aside from Mario, Goomblain, and the Guardians, have been split in 2. A night version and a day version. They don't know they exist. And this includes Peach, Luigi, and Toadsworth, who were captured by King Shroud. So, of course, we have the whole thing with Peach wanting to help out Mario, find the location and stuff like that. And, of course, Mario and Luigi and Toadsworth kind of help Peach out. It's a nice natural progression with Paper Mario, So, over the course of the series, basically, it kind of goes into this repetitive motion of they go to a new chapter starts, they find a location, they find the Guardians. The Guardians are actually all of Mario's partners. The Guardians, basically, they find out it's like, well, someone mentions, like, night or day, like the opposite time. And it's like, and then Mario completely freaks out. It's like, wait a minute, you're a Guardian. That means you must come with me. Ta-da! And of course you get like the standard partner get sound and pay stuff like that. It's like I said, this story borrows heavy inspiration from like the ins and outs of Thousand Year Door and 64. So, and the plot basically just is just mostly repetitive. Granted, 64 and Thousand Year Door, they had their own issues with that. It's just, it just went about it in different ways. Only so much you can reinvent the wheel, sort of deal with this type of story. This one is honestly kind of weak because I'll get more into that at the end because I actually want to talk about that in detail. I don't think it's worth talking about just now. Just wait. But yeah, the story kind of follows the same path as the other two games. You know, Mario goes on to a new area. He meets some people. He gets a partner. He goes, fights the boss. He gets the Soul Stone. The Soul Stone goes to the Guardian, and runs and repeat. Then we have a part with Peach where she's trying to find the location of the next Soul Stone to tell Mario, because guess what? While King Shroud has the night version of Princess Peach, the daytime version of Princess Peach is just sitting right next to Rodolfo, just having tea. Just doing off. Like, and then she gets a brain flash. It's like, I know where the next Soul Stone is, and she tells Mario. So basically, I just like the creativity of... You're going to find this a lot. I'm going to say this a lot. Is I really love all the ideas in this story, and I love how they're executed. And I want to go over to like one very hilarious moment, because the humor in the story is just very, again, just like 64 and Thousand Year Door. It's very much breaks the fourth wall. Like even Goomblain near the end kind of lampshades. It's like this is like, come on, you have to expect us to break the fourth wall one time in the story. And that's like near the end where Goomblain actually breaks the fourth wall. Everyone looks at him and is like, what? Come on, it's a fourth wall break. We gotta have one of those. But that's not the part. The very hilarious part. It's not my favorite part, because I'm going to talk about that at the end. But a very hilarious part is at the end, where King Shroud's plan is he wants to get rid of Day permanently. But in order to do that, he has to wait for the Master of Day to appear, so that way he can kill the Master of Day, and Day will be disappeared. He thought throughout the entire story that Peach was the Master Day, because because they do build up a lot to it by saying that, oh, the Guardians are pure heart. They're very specific individuals who have bright heart. We're very, very nice, and that kind of summarizes Peach in a nutshell. She's very pure. She's very nice. She's just a very nice person. And King Shroud finds out it's not Peach. It's Mario's Goomba companion. I'll talk more about him when I talk about the characters. But just let me roll it. King Shroud basically just stops. Like, what? It's like Goomblain is the Master of the Day. And then both Shroud and Peach just completely use not King Shroud. It's Peach too. And I actually have to go to this because trust me, this is hilarious, and I don't want to mess it up. I actually don't want to. Where is it? Yeah, so Mario kind of gives him truth. It's like, well, if she was a Master Day, then wouldn't it make more sense for her to actually not be split in half? Mario shows Goomblain, and then Shroud goes, wait a minute, what? You're lying. You have to be a Goomba, the Master of Day, the one true equal to my power, is a Goomba! It's like, yeah, funny how life works that, isn't it? It's like, and then he completely just loses, like, but it can't be. You're telling me that Princess Peach, the legendary Maiden of Purity, specifically the things that the souls were specifically told to us at the beginning of the story, that you have to be pure of heart, was just some random girl that had no bearing on my plans whatsoever. Yeah. Yeah. And then Peach actually just digs it even deeper by going, you mean the villain didn't need me this time? I'm so happy. And then they immediately kind of lean on they don't break it, they kind of lean on it. It's like, why do you think it was Peach? And it's like, why wouldn't you think that's Peach? She's like, you always need a pure and fair maiden for this thing. Always. And then, I kid you not, Mario and his partners are like, Get a point. I'm literally laughing through the exchange. Like I said, when it comes to all the ideas, not even just some, all the ideas in the story, it's very, very well written and very well executed in every department except for one. And it's just a very, very cool twist. It's like it's trying to still be Paper Mario at heart, but trying to do this own thing. Which I appreciate. Like I said, it's good. I just really think it's just one issue I just have a problem with it. But yeah, they kind of, again, the plot just ends with them going on, doing them actually agreeing to actually do a proper vacation of Chronoside. For the same thing, I'm not going to mention Bowser because Bowser only really matters in like, the whole Bowser side plot only really matters at the end. I'm going to save that for my favorite part. Just bear with me. Characters. I'm not going to talk about Mario because Mario pretty much stays the same. Like, he doesn't really evolve because it's Mario. It's just like it's just like Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door. The real hook is going to be the partners and their personalities. And I'm not even going to talk about most of the partners because some of the partners, just like in the previous games, they're hit or miss. Like, you're going to like some, you're not going to like others. It's just, that's the name of the game. So let's talk about the man of the hour, Goomblain. I like Goomblain. I really appreciate Goomblain. He's a natural progression of the Goomba partners in the series. Like, you have Goombario. He's a very nice guy. He idolizes Mario. He's just so full of life and happiness. And then you got Goombella, who's very snarky. She has wicked chemistry. Like I said in my partner tier list, Goombella has bar none the best chemistry with Mario across both those two Mario games. And she has a very sarcastic comment for everything. Goomblain, he doesn't give a single fuck about anything. He's like, let them die. I don't really care. See? Nice, snarky, a douchebag. He's a douchebag, but he's like douchebag that you gotta like. You gotta love Goomblain. He's just really cool. He's a really cool character. I'm gonna go more into detail with him. Just wait. But I do love what the author does with him later in the story. Not now, but again later. And then we have the rest of the partners. Like I said, the rest of the partners are largely hit or miss. They do a neat thing with Dahlia because they reference Dupless. And Mario is just like completely afraid of Dahlia because of what Dupless did to him. That's fine. He does get over it. One of his partners is a Clubba, and again, the author references past Paper Marios because the Clubba tribe is like the main group of Chapter 3. In both Chapter 3s of both games, the main across both main Chapter 3s, the main antagonist is a Clubba. Paper Mario 64 has Tubba Blubba, and Thousand Door has Grubba. So of course he's very, very hesitant about a Clubba because of like just the shenanigans he had with them. He gets over it because because his partners kind of call him out on it, and he kind of realizes it. It's fine. There is Maisie. I like Maisie. I just wish she could have been better. I get the idea behind her because you're trying to follow. Because similar to Goomblain, you wanted it to be a natural progression of the fifth partners of the series, because the fifth partners were actually, because both Lady Bow and Vivian are the fifth partners you get in their respective games, and they're bar none the most popular characters in those respective games. So you wanted Maisie to kind of follow in their footsteps. Wasn't quite there, mainly because Goomblain was just a legitimately good character. I wouldn't put him anywhere near like the top of my favorite OCs, but he's bar none the best written character. King Child is just a generic villain. There's not really much to talk about him outside of the whole end where he kind of freaks out over the fact that he had no reason to kidnap Peach. Like, he actually, let me talk about that. He actually would have won if he didn't kidnap Peach. Just think about that for a second. Because if he didn't kidnap Peach, What was I- yeah. If King Child didn't kidnap Peach, then he literally would have won because Peach wouldn't have been able to get the information. And I love that little tidbit because again, it's a natural progression of what her whole role is in the story. Because in the first game, her role was she was just there, like she was really there to be kidnapped by Bowser, and Bowser didn't really have just wanted to kidnap her. So in the grand scheme of things, she was just really there because it's Bowser. But in Thousand Year Door and in Super Paper Mario, she has a very important role to play in the villain's plan because in Thousand Year Door, Grotes's plan hinges on the fact that Princess Peach was pure at heart and needed to basically be possessed by the Shadow Queen. And the same thing kind of happened in Super Paper Mario, but she was in essence, she was more active. So in essence, it's a progression by regression, where she kind of goes back to how she was in the original, where she's not really important to the plot. But lampshading the fact that she was important to the plot by pointing out the fact that she actually wasn't important to anything about the villain's plans. I just think that's a neat twist. That's a legitimately neat twist, and again, I really liked it. So yeah, when it comes to the characters, again, hit or miss. There's Hanner. I like Hanner. There was Sheriff Bandit. I like the whole idea of a bandit being a sheriff. It's just he's honestly the weakest of the partners because there's just really not a lot to him. Again, that's gonna play into what I think is the worst part of the story. I'll talk more about him when I get to that. But overall, there's a lot to like with the characters. Like there's again, it's trying to be like Paper Mario. And I can appreciate the fact that he was trying to do a natural progression over what's happening. Even at the end, where they mentioned like the sticker comment, and I'm like shaking my head. It's like, oh, if only the author knew at the time what a shit so sticker star was gonna be. Oh, that's just kind of just like you're taking yourself deeper. Just do what Kingdom Bound Midnight do and say that's a fever pitch hallucination. But yeah, grammar-wise, I didn't see any grammar errors. And now we get to the worst. The only truly bad part of the story. The pacing. Now, I have mentioned before in the past that a good pacing can sink or swim, and I even mentioned how some stories, they kind of have pacing as a start or a frac of the worst part, and then it splinters everywhere. Like, characters will suffer, the plot will suffer, the writing will suffer, everything will suffer because the author rushed everything. This story is a unique distinction in the fact that nothing really suffered from the bad pacing. Let me explain. We have a very captivating plot. We have pretty captivating characters. We have all the ideas that the author implemented were done really well. So now you're wondering, what the hell am I talking about? Because if I'm talking all this praises of the story, that means the plot, that means the pacing shouldn't have been that bad, right? It's like, let me explain. So, let me start by posting an example of how the use of NPCs and stuff like that and the gameplay itself works by improving and expanding upon the world of Paper Mario. In Chapter 4 of Paper Mario: The Thousand Door, where you go to Twilight Town, you find a mother and her 3 kids. For those of you who don't know, who haven't played Thousand Year Door, in the beginning of that chapter, the villain, Dupless, who is the Duplighost, is pranking the entire city of Twilight Town by ringing a bell, and every time the bell rings, a member of the town turns into a pig. So what happens is Mario goes there, and he sees people turning into person who's greeting him turns into a pig. A little bit later, he can go inside a house. He meets a mother and her 3 kids. The kids are incredibly depressed because they are actually starving, and the mother has no way to feed him because the store that would sell everyone food closed down because the owner turned into a pig. Well, the person who was supposed to get the groceries to restock everything turned to a pig. So everyone in Twilight Town is literally starving. Not only are they turning into pigs, they're literally starving. So when Mario talks to her, she explained her plight. They haven't eaten in days. Everyone's turning because no one knows what happened to the store owner. He turned into a pig. And she's just completely despondent. And so she actually begs Mario to get her something to eat. Not for herself, but for her kids. She's willing to let herself starve if it means her kids can get fed. You have the option, as Mario, to give her any food item. As long as it's not a mistake or anything. I don't know if a mistake will work. If you do this, she'll give you a star item, where you can just fire a bunch of stars and do a lot of damage to enemies. And she thanks him. She thanks Mario. Her kids are now eating. But then the bell rings. And she turns into a pig. Completely freaking out the kids. And causing them to be to get into tears over the fact that their mother changed. It's that kind of gameplay aspect that builds upon the world. So how that translates to this story is the author tries to world build, but at the same time, because of how fast he makes everything, the world feels incomplete. There's nothing to fill in the gaps of everything that's happening. Mario's not talking to random people. He's not engaging in little activities. He's not exploring that area with as much as he can. He just goes in, gets the thing, and leaves. There's no sense of the world being this vibrant and thriving place. The pacing causes everything to be hollow. And by the time you actually kind of use the area, Mario leaves, he never returns, and it's just off to the next area. And that really hampers the use on some of the ideas, because some of the ideas are really cool, because he had, one idea he has is he has what's called the Aeon Hourglass, and so basically when he's in daytime, he can flip it, he can go to nighttime, he can flip it again, and go back to daytime. That's not really used that much. Again, that's kind of fair. But outside of that, there's no real sense of proper world build, because each side kind of has a different set of unique things going on. But we're not given a chance to really get acquainted with the area that Mario's going to. We're not really given enough time to get acquainted with the NPCs. We're not acquainted to get used to the whole story, and that kind of really shoots everything in the foot. Granted, there is an exception with the whole Poison Factory, because Mario has to kind of rush there, because everyone in Chronoside is actually slowly dying because of poison residue runoff from the factory. So that one, I'm willing to give a pass on the fast pacing of that one because of storyline reasons. But everything else, because it's revealed that this story takes place over the course of months, literal months, this story happens, and it just feels so hollow that the author wanted to rush things without letting us get used to the locations, having Mario get used to the world around him. Because that's another thing with all the locations in Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door. Because we're given enough time to get us used to locations before we leave. So it's like, we know what the locations look like. We know the people we're talking to if we want to go ahead and actually talk to them. there's lots of little neat things. There's like in the N64, there's Chuck Quizmo showing up every so often in like a random place. It's that sort of thing that even if it's like a generic place like Petalburg, it gives it so much more life. And when I was reading the story, it never felt like that location specifically mattered. It was just mechanical in nature. And that really hurt it from a pacing standpoint. Like, the story is long enough. Like, it's around 250,000 words. That the characters, the plot didn't really suffer as much from the pacing as like other examples that I gave, where where fast pacing caused the problems. But the pacing wasn't so much the characters or the plot; it was the world itself. You can't expect to give us all these great worlds. These great, like, let's go through the worlds. We have Chronoside, a sort of pseudo-religious hub world where it's split night and day. You have the first town, which is just a generic Koopa village, like, with a big forest. Again, that's like typical. Then you got a circus in a big city. You have a hidden village with the poison factory. You have a literal surfing beach with like lots of dude bros there. Like, dude, bruh. Like, I'm not your buddy, dude. I'm not your dude, pal. I'm not your pal, friend. I'm not your friend, buddy. That sort of thing. And the author doesn't really give us enough time to be acquainted to that world. We're not given enough time to really get ourselves attached to that world. Hence why I said the only issue with the story is the pacing in regards to the world building. Because if you're not giving us enough time to show us this world, show us these cool ideas and these cool environments and these cool people, don't half-ass it by rushing through everything to the point where you just don't make the worlds matter. And that really, really stings, because going into the final part of it, would I recommend it? I still would recommend this, but it kind of leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. It's like, this story is good, but it's not great because the pacing causes us to not care about the world. And that's one of the big things with Paper Mario. If you wanted to continue the themings of the story structure of Paper Mario, it would have been better to just let us show us the world. Show us everything. You go, like with Diavelli Circus, that's probably the closest thing we had to an actual good pacing, like at least a slow enough pacing, because you got to figure out everything, getting employed into Diavelli Circus and then kind of working on an act and sort of thing, like a mini game sort of thing. Like it's that one's the closest, but it's not quite there because we're not given this big town, because the circus is just a traveling circus that just happens to be a town. What about the town? What's the town like? Give us the other acts. Give us a show. Like have Diabelli show Mario at Circus with like all them, with Benny and what's Volian, the Vivian look like. I actually having a brain fart what her name is and everything. Give us that world. You have the world. You have the characters. You have the story. It's just, you rushed through everything so fast, you kind of forgot the world, to give us those worlds, to give us that proper world building. And that's really the only thing I would change. I would drastically slow down the story in each chapter, with the exception of Factory. That one can stay fine, because again, in the context of that one, it's fine because everyone is literally slowly starting to die because everyone's starting to get poisoned. So Mario would want to actually just rush through that. That one's fine. I have no problem with that one. Maybe slow it down when we're introduced to like the final battle with the villain of that chapter. Kind of giving us more time to get used to the characters and maybe have Mario spend a little more time at that village, just to kind of see what the village is like and stuff like that. But other than that, that chapter I have no problem with. Everything else, on the other hand, have slowed down the story because again, this story takes place over the course of months. Like it's months that this story takes place over. So why not slow the story down in each chapter to let us to introduce us more to that world? Like how hard would that be to just simply slow the story down, show us more of this world. That's it. Like give us as much stuff to do, people to talk to, things to do. The whole world in context is your oyster. There's so much you can do with it, and you didn't. It kind of hurts because I really want this story to be good. And it is good. It's good. It's not great, but it's good. I have no problem recommending the story. I just wish we gotten to know more of this world. I'm saying. Favorite part. All of chapter 7. The reason I say that is because the author does a really, really cool thing. So if you actually watched my partner's tier list, I mentioned that there was one very big flaw with both Goombario and Goombella, and that's the fact that they don't have a proper character arc. And when I started reading through Temple of the Sun, and the same thing, happened with Goomblane. Like, Goomblaine's basically just like, oh, Goomblane takes Mario's hammer. Mario chases him into the temple. The whole thing happens. They kind of leave. Goomblane gets arrested. And then the cops basically said, you gotta go with Mario. That's it. And that's really it. And it even plays out just like Goombella and Goombario, where it's like, oh, here's Goomblane. He does the tattle thing. But this time he's a smart aleck and pulls out a smartphone. Goombario just knows things up his head. Goombella has a book. Goomblaine's like hip with the kids. He has a cell phone. There you go. It's like, there you go. Where do you get all the information on your phone? It's like, I don't know. But, yeah. And I thought that was it. It's like, okay, Goomblane is literally going to just follow in the footsteps of the previous two Goombas. He's going to have a good character, but he's not going to have a good character arc. Imagine my shock when we got to Chapter 7 and that whole purpose of Chapter 7 is giving Goomblane a character arc. And I was crying tears of joy. I was like, finally, we got it! So let's go over Goomblane's character arc and why I think it's just freaking amazing that the author took the time to give Goomblane a character arc. He didn't have to. He really didn't. But holy shit, I was completely caught off guard by the fact he did. So Goomblane's character arc is as follows. Goomblane was actually more... Remember how I said earlier where Chronosai kind of has this religion based around the Guardians? Like the whole thing's like very religious in nature. Goomblane is where it comes into play. Goomblane was just like mostly people in Chronoside, where he was very religious of the Guardians of the Night Day. However, his parents were not. They didn't believe in the Guardians existing. They just thought it was a lot of hogwash. His parents actually died from people who worshiped them because they see them as non-believers. And so they basically set Goomblane's house on fire, Gwynplaine watches the whole thing, completely heartbroken, and blames the Guardians because, in his eyes, the Guardians shouldn't have done something like this. And so he becomes the Gwynplaine we know throughout the story. Very bitter, very hateful towards everything, very apathetic. And it's revealed that Gwynplaine, even if he hates them, like, because the rest of the partners are the Guardians, and Gwynplaine hates that. That's why we don't really see much with his character that much. Like I said, he doesn't have a proper character arc, but he has a good character. He's very apathetic and very much a douchebag. And he really hates having to work with what he considers are the people who roundaboutly killed his parents, because they weren't, while Mario's partners weren't the Guardians that were involved, he still hates the fact that they are Guardians at all. And so that boils into Chapter 7, where he basically leaves Mario in the game because he doesn't want to deal with them anymore, because he couldn't stand being near his parents' murderers somewhat, because again, his partners weren't the ones who killed his parents, but he still didn't like the fact that they were Guardians, period. He leaves them. Mario goes to find the last Soul Stone for the Master of Day, who turns out to be Gwynplaine, and they fight Bowser. Basically, Bowser's whole thing kind of built up to this chapter. And Bowser basically starts fighting him, but then Gwynplaine charges in and basically starts beating the crap out of Mario, because his hatred completely boiled over, and he realized that he still had to go. He still went through all this despite the fact, he actually really didn't like doing this. Like, he knew they were Guardians. He hated the Guardians. He still went through it because because Chronoside needed the Guardians. He let his anger at bay as much as he could, as long as he could, because he knew that Chronoside needed the Guardians. And that boiled over into the boss fight, where Bowser basically completely destroyed all the partners, and Gwynplaine was crying his soul out to Mario while beating the crap out of Mario, and Gwynplaine actually defeats Mario. And then Bowser's like getting impatient because he beat all the partners, and Gwynplaine and Mario are kind of still going at it. It's like, can I fight you now? And they kind of come to an agreement. Gwynplaine pours his soul out. Mario forgives him. Mario understands where he's coming from, and Gwynplaine's just crying his tears out. And Bowser is just getting so impatient he's fighting him. Mario tells Gwynplaine to get away, and decides to pull up his hammer, pull up his overalls, and fight Bowser by himself. Mario gets destroyed by Bowser, and Mario, on his last legs, is about to witnessing the fact that he's finally gonna lose. And Bowser's relishing the whole thing. And Gwynplaine sneak attacks Bowser, realizing that and so Gwynplaine manages one more battle partner, and Mario's like, let's do this. And so Gwynplaine and Mario team up. They manage to defeat Bowser barely, because it's a really well done character arc that just summarizes everything that I liked about the story. Because again, I wasn't expecting a character arc out of Gwynplaine, because that didn't happen with Goombario or Goombella. That's just caught me off guard. But it's this chapter specifically that shows how much love that the author put into the story. Because again, it's a good story. It's a really, really good written story. Good characters, good story, good everything. It just feels incomplete, because the author wanted to rush everything without taking the time to show us each world. Give us that world. Give us all a Chronoside. Give us all of it. And Gwynplaine was basically the epitome of everything. And then Gwynplaine tries to get everyone's forgiveness. He basically begs Mario's other partners to forgive him. They all forgive him. And of course, at the end, at the epilogue, we get like Goomblay's now basically the main priest of the Temple of the Sun, which is a neat little thing. I really like it. Like, what more can you ask for with the story? It's good. Really wish we could have seen more of this world. It just feels incomplete because the author rushed through the whole world. Kind of hurts. It just really hurts. But yeah, that's Temple of the Sun. This has been Dark Symphony 777. I will see you next time. Have a happy 2022. And cut.